It's the first week of spring in Apothecaria, and Albert Flywheel is frogified. Hey everyone, Parz here at drawingXpressions. Thank you so much for coming along for this next episode in the Apothecaria story writing that we're doing with Apothecaria, the journaling solo RPG, the JSRPG that we are using here. Yeah, I hope it's been fun so far. The last two videos have been a little bit more of a nuts and bolts kind of thing. This one is also going to be nuts and bolts, because we're going to be going through and actually drawing prompts for this first week. And so we're going to go through the mechanics of how that works. I think that's something that's going to be very useful if this is new to you. It was new to me using the formats that are used within the system. And so having a little bit of a walkthrough as we do it, I think is going to be very helpful. So that's going to be, before I start to get into the planner and the pantser and all that kind of start, let's first get our minds and our bodies ready. And the first thing that needs to be mentioned is this is all guidelines. You've heard it before, you're going to hear it again. If anything doesn't make sense, don't use it. If it does make sense and I haven't talked about it, use it and then shoot me a note and let me know what you're doing, because I'd love to know. So it's all guidelines. There are no fixed rules. I do set this up with two sections, the planner and the pantser. So the planner is going to be running through the nuts and bolts of getting your prompts and also keeping anything else in mind that would be coming in. So like for us, it's going to be the intro, the prologue that I presented last video. And then, so taking those prompts, combined with what has come before, combined with what is just in our imaginations, and seeing what it is that we come up with. And then pantser section is going to be a bit of a discussion about a couple of things I want to highlight from this particular video. So that is that. And before we move on, again, let's get our minds and bodies ready for this through our breathe and stretch. So I'm going to invite you to take a nice deep breath in with me. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, and hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Big breath in and a little stretch and exhale. Awesome. Good. All right. So I feel like I'm ready to get going. I hope you are too. So let's see now here. Let me call up my notes, because there is some things that I want to talk about before we start to really get into stuff. So let me get over here to where I share my screen. Hello. Okay, so this is Apothecaria Spring Week 1. Now, the way things work is within Apothecaria, everything is broken into seasons. So we have the 4 seasons, spring, summer, autumn, winter. And within each season, you have 13 weeks. And within each week, you have a piece of the week where someone comes in with an ailment and you're going to heal them. And that's what we're going to be doing today. And then the rest of the week is a rest period. So, things that you can do otherwise, that you're not focused on fixing somebody. And so, in essence, you have 26 episodes per season. And then at the end of the season, there is a festival. And so then that adds another little prompt. So in essence, 27 episodes per season. And so you have 4 seasons. So there's a lot of writing we can do over the course of a year. And as things develop and as things move and as you write and your story progresses in whatever direction your story goes, And let me tell you, mine has already taken twists and turns that I never in a million years would have anticipated. And Alicia's is the same as well. So yeah, it's fun, it's engaging, and today let's get through the mechanics of making this work, so that hopefully when you have your first experience opening the book, it's not frustrating. You know what's going on. So let me get the screen moved to where I want it to be. Perfect. So how I use Apothecaria to write potion making episodes, right? So this is the first part of the first week of the first season. Okay, so what you have is someone has an ailment and they come to you. Okay, so the first trick is figuring out what do they have. And there are things to look for in the little explanation boxes. I will show all of this as I walk through. I'm just giving an overview this time. So they're going to come in with an ailment. You figure out what they have, and we pick a card to do that. And then the next bit is we need to figure out what is it going to take to cure them. So we find the appropriate reagents. And we sort of make a plan of action, right? So we're at home at the cottage. We open the book, we figure out where we need to go to get the things that we need. And so off we go. And when we go somewhere, there may be an encounter, something that happens at some point while we're in that particular area. We gather our reagents. We come home, brew up the potion, give it to our client or our patient. And if everything has gone well, they take the potion, they get better, they give us money, our reputation goes up. If things don't go well, things happen. Today we're just going to do the straightforward, everything goes well, because there's no sense in trying to bite off the entire thing. As Alicia likes to say, how do you eat an elephant? And the answer is one mouthful at a time. So that's what we're going to do. One mouthful at a time. Okay, so as I went through, so what's the ailment? We will pick a card, find the cure, go to the reagents, harvest the reagents, go home, brew, and then get paid in money and reputation. This screen actually might be a nice one to just take a screenshot of, to sort of give you an order of things, if that makes sense to you. So I'll just take a second and there it is. Hey there, Parz from the future here, going through the edit of the prior Parz, the past Parz, and there's a couple of things that need to be fully explained. And so this is going to be full explanation number 1. Next one comes up in a little bit. So what we're trying to do with the prompts is the game rules themselves, or the game guidelines themselves. They say, well, here, let me just pull it up onto the screen. So he has step 1, note on a piece of paper that you have 0 foraging points. We didn't really talk about foraging points, and that's sort of a topic for another day. Draw a card and check the locale and to see what happens. So this is the location prompt that I was referring to. Resolve it as appropriate. Right now, you're going to take that same card, and now you're going to go to step 2 and a bit to see if you actually got the reagent that you were looking to collect. And if you do, then you qualify for step 2 and a bit. You get to find that reagent. Or step 2 and the other bit, if you don't get the reagent you were looking for, you get 1 foraging point, but you don't get the thing that you were looking for. Step 3 deals with foraging points. I'm just going to skip that. We go to step 4. You decrease your timer by 1, and then it's, if you are still looking for a reagent, you go back to step 2, which is you draw a card again. So The thing about that is that is an awful lot of prompts. There are ailments that have no timer. And so in essence, you have 13 actions on the timer that can run through, which could mean 13 different prompts based on, on these different locations. And that's an awful lot of prompts. So my preference and Alicia's preference is to keep the number of prompts manageable. So when you go to an area, we're just drawing once as far as entering the area, and then after that, we don't worry about drawing prompt cards. We simply are looking for the reagents. Did we achieve the reagent difficulty number that we were looking for or not? And that way, it provides more space for the imagination to flesh out story and not have the prompts take over. In essence, we want the prompts to be a springboard for story. We don't want the prompts to be the story. So that's what's going on with there. Okay. I am going to come back to here and not hit the wrong screen. Okay. Before I go on, I want to come back just to a couple of points here. So let's come back to there. Okay. Once we have all that, and we've done all the stuff, we've made our plan, we've sort of worked it all out, the journaling part, fleshing everything out. Who was the patient? Tell me more. Tell me more about the experience. Tell me more about what your witch went through. Tell me about what your witch felt. What was your witch thinking? What was all the experiences, right? We want to show the experiences that your witch is having. We don't want to just simply have a cut and dry, this happened, this happened, this happened. This is what happened. This is where it happened. This is when it happened. This is how it happened. This is why it happened. I mean, it's like a newspaper report, and we're not looking for that. What we're going for is something that's much more rich. And as we're thinking, we're having internal dialogue, and we're working through all of the rigmarole that you can experience, and all the things that you can think, and all the things you can feel. We're going to be putting that all into our journal. And the last thing that I wanted to highlight is, on a first go around, be patient, be flexible, and be willing to not do everything all at once. So the experience that Alicia and I had with this particular week, because it was our first week and we were working our way through, and it's deceptively, the book is set up deceptively simply. So it seems like you can just sort of like work your way through, and there it is. We had problems figuring out what should go where and how to do this, and even though maybe something is said in the book, it doesn't maybe register. I don't know if that's just a function of getting a little bit older or whatever, but just be patient with yourself. If this is new, and this was new to me, journal. Solo role-play game. Yes, I've played role-play games, but never where I've had to do it myself and where I'm writing all about it. So it's some false starts and some things that are hard to kind of work through. So be patient with yourself. Okay. All of that said, what I would like to do is to show off. This was. This is my little it's like plan of action, I guess. So this is in my journal. Top it says prompts, and then so the first one is the introduction, or the prologue. I hadn't written the prologue yet when we drew our prompts for this spring week 1. And so I went through the prologue and then got into everything here. So I've listed out the ailment, Frogified, and some of the things that are associated with it. And then the plan of action and how everything kind of came out as we were drawing cards and getting our prompts. And finally, here at the very bottom, travel home, how to prepare it, picking up the silver and picking up reputation. So yes, I was successful. And then the very last thing is downtime. So that's going to be next week's. Okay. So with that, that is sort of the highlight. So now let's get into exactly how I got all of that. But first, it's a little bit earlier in the day today, but I figure afternoon, 5 o'clock, that's more of a state of mind that's inspired by a clock. I don't need the clock to be inspired. So here we go. First off is we need an ailment. That is the basis on which this piece of story is going to go. Need an ailment. So we use tarot cards, and we drew a 6 of coins. There is the little photo of we have several decks in the house. This one we've enlisted for our gameplay. Okay, so 6 of coins, or the 6 is the important part. And our reputation is a starting value of 5. That is where the game starts you, at 5. So that puts you into a novice ailments table, and you can see Frogified is listed here, and the explanation is after some clever clog wrote a story about kissing a frog and getting a prince, witches have had to deal with a flood of hopeless romantics getting warty lips and poisoned. So the 2 elements to this Frogified condition is we have a level 1-star wart and a level 1-star poison. And we have a timer of 6 to get this all sorted out. Now, the timer, I wouldn't try to apply any sort of time frame to the timer because sometimes the timer can be upwards of 13 actions. And so I just look at them as actions, and if you choose to write things in that happen over the course of a day or days, and you want to include that, that's great. It can be a bit confusing, and so I would not try to force the timer into hours or days. You have 6 actions, and the timer is there just to make sure that you're not tootling around, taking your sweet time on every single thing and not getting the work done. Right? So timer 6. Okay. We know now that our patient has been Frogified. We know what Frogified looks like. And so what we need to do, come back here, we need to find reagents for wart, 1-star, and poison, 1-star. Everything is levels 1, 2, or 3 stars. 1 is the least powerful, and 3 stars the most. So pretty much anything that we're looking for that covers warts and poison are going to help. Okay, I'm just going to scroll right up here. Okay, so we look through the book and figure out what reagents we need. Now, there are 4 basic areas that are open at the 5 basic areas that are open at the very beginning of the game. So there's the village, and then there are the 4 places where you can get reagents. So that is the forest in Glimmerwood Grove. That is the mountain on Moonbreaker Mountain. That is in the lock at Meltwater Lock, and then in the dungeon of Heroes Hollow. All right, and then there's a list of reagents for each of these locations. And just as a note that there are other locations that can be unlocked as you progress further and further in the game. And we'll get to what happened when I happened into that situation in a few minutes. Okay, coming back now to the screen. Okay, so there is our locations. And so we decided, Alicia and I, that we're going to go to Hero's Hollow for the poison reagent, and we're going to go to Meltwater Lock for the wart reagent. Okay, so again, timer is 6, and this is where the timer is now going to become an important thing. If we don't cure our person, if we don't cure the person by the time the timer runs out, 1, we don't get paid. 2, there is the consequence, and there is let's see if I just bring that back real quick. Show it here. So there is the consequence, which is at the bottom of the Frogified listing. The rush to the village doctor, you lose 1 reputation point. And so a lot of these, there is a consequence if you are unable to cure them in time. Today we cure in time, and so we're not going to be worrying about that. And that's one of the nice things about how the system is set up, because the novice ailments are fairly straightforward to get through, and there's not a lot of things that can get in the way of you messing up, not curing your patient. And by messing up, you know, that could be an entertaining thing to write about. So, you know, think about that. Okay, we're coming back to time and travel. So traveling to the first location is free, so our timer is still 6. We arrive at Hero's Hollow, and something is going to happen while we are at Hero's Hollow, or maybe making our way there, making our way away. We just want to include this as part of our story. And so I drew a 6 of wands. And the ground gives way beneath you, dropping you into a smooth stone chute, which drops you into a cell somewhere in the depths of the dungeon. Thankfully, the lock isn't too hard to pick. Decrease the timer by 1. Well, so much for the free travel to the Hero's Hollow. With that just got spent. Okay. So at some point, we're going to put that into our story. And the timer is now at 5. As you know, just kind of keeping track of things. I'm going to come back here just real quick. So keep in mind that as we are figuring out the prompts, and so you're going to end up with like a list of prompts, like I find the reagent, I've got the stone chute, I'm going to, you know, whatever all I'm going to encounter and do. They don't have to happen in order. You can move things around. You can gather things together. If you've got 3 prompts that all kind of sound like they would work together, write them into the same thing. There will be examples of this as the video series goes along. I don't think it's in this one, but you know, we'll see. But anyways, just don't be afraid to group, to gather, to have things make more sense, to have things be a more compelling story, and to have fun with it. Now that's a huge thing, right? If you're grinning as you're writing this down, like, oh, this is good stuff, like, that's what we're shooting for, because that's what we want. If you're happy with it, then that's what we want. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the screen. Okay, our timer is at 5, and now we're going to collect reagents. Now, this is the point where I messed up a little bit, but at the same time, it works for the story, and so it's a beneficial mess up. So if you notice here on Crocol, it's a 2-star reagent. It's magic, so there's 3 types of reagents. There's magic, there's plant, and there's animal. And that means different things, and so, you know, kind of hold off on that one. So then it says Dungeon 7 and then Bog 4. So this is the 2 locations where this particular reagent can be found. And the numbers indicate the difficulty of finding this stuff. So the higher the number, the more difficult. So we're going to pull a card, and if we equal or exceed the difficulty number given our location, then we find the reagent. If not, we don't find it in that particular turn. It means then that we're going to spend another action looking for that same reagent if we choose to go looking for that same reagent. So here's what happened. And I'm going to come over here to the room. So what I did is I said the stone chute. So this is on my way to the dungeon. Down I go, right? So the ground gives out beneath, and I end up in Hero's Hollow inside a dungeon cell. Totally out of the blue. What do I do? Well, I pick the lock. I do manage to get out, and I don't know Hero's Hollow, and I haven't gone in through the front door. So I'm thinking, get me out. So I escape the dungeon, and I say to myself, well, the bog, clearly the bog is part of this territory, and so I end up in the bog. So at the bog, the difficulty, I'm going to bring it back here, the bog is level 4 to find this crow coal, and so I'm just going to grab that. And I opted to not write deeply on the crow coal. It just said that it was getting crow coal. That the crows kind of gather it up for when they eat something nasty, and they guard it, and so it can be difficult to get from them. So I said, while I'm in the bog, because I've escaped the dungeon, I just need a 4. I drew a 5, the 5 of cups there, and so boom, I found the crow coal. Well, it turns out that there is a separate location. The bog is actually a deeper location elsewhere, which is locked. And I should not have been able to get there yet, but I didn't know because the rules are unclear in how that's all presented. So that's how I wrote the story. And the great thing here is yes, the guideline said, the bog is closed, you can't get to it, it's not supposed to be available. I took it as available, and that's the way I wrote it. And as a piece of story, it's great. As a piece of game mechanic, it didn't. It's not what was intended, but that's okay. That's the purpose of these guidelines. That is the purpose of all this stuff. So if you make a mistake and you find out later on, like, oh, that was supposed to be locked. By the way, I found out about this there's a Discord server. And as I was watching this conversation, that's when it was revealed that, oh, by the way, the locations of these reagents are not, they can be located in multiple places across the Apothecaria universe. Hey there, Parz from the future. This is the other clarification that needed to be made. So reagents can be found in multiple locations. Any given reagent can be found in multiple places. The hard part with the way that the reagents are listed out in the guidebook is they get listed once. And so here, I'm just going to show you an example. So this is foot fungus, which is a plant. And it can be found in the forest, so Glimmerwood Grove, and it can be found on the mountain, so Moonbreaker Mountain, and it can be found in the dungeon, Hero's Hollow. But it's only going to be listed the one time in Glimmerwood Grove. So I'm going to come back here. So the other 2 instances, to save paper and save space, they don't get listed there. So that can be a little bit of a difficult thing to navigate as you're looking for your reagents and what locations are going to have what reagents in a space. So one way to kind of get around that is you could certainly go through all of the reagents and put them into like a spreadsheet. And so list out the different locations where they're located and the difficulty for each location and whatnot. And this appeals to me. I'm a trained accountant, sort of a wannabe data scientist as well. So, spreadsheets and databases, they excite me, they work for me. The thing is, however, what Alicia and I are trying to do in our playthrough is to keep things completely analog. That's part of the reason why we're writing everything out on paper. We're using fountain pens in order just to have a better paper writing experience. And so to put everything into a spreadsheet would sort of negate that effort. So we are finding different ways to list things out, and we're still experimenting with how to make it all work and how to make it work the best. I don't know that we've really found something yet. So we're just sort of muddling our way through, and as we try to find a reagent in various places. And so far we haven't run into a lot of difficulty. But for the people who are looking for specific reagent in a specific location, you may have to do a little bit more homework inside of the list of reagents and the within each location. And I don't really have a great answer for you right now. When I do, it will go into a video. Okay, back to the old guy. And continuing with that, the storyline of now being in the bog outside of the dungeon, I also pick up Skullcap. It is a plant, and again, I needed level 4, a 4 card in order, or 4 or more in order to pick that up. And as I said, we have a tarot deck, and the Emperor came up, and the Emperor is card number 4. And so it matched. So I'm going to come back here. So quick addressing of the tarot, the use of tarot versus a use of playing cards. So playing cards specifically are for Apothecaria. And you're supposed to keep the jokers in. So you have 54 cards, right? So you've got the ace to king in 4 suits, and then the 2 jokers. And when you draw a joker, you get some sort of hint about what happened to the old witch. Otherwise, they are just ways to pick prompts. With the tarot, you also have ace to king, but there is 4 face cards, not 3, like you do in a normal deck of cards. So what Alicia and I did is we said, well, what we're going to do is we're going to take that 4th face card, and we are going to call that a joker. So we have a lot more jokers in our deck now than playing card deck. Another thing that we did is we said whenever we get a major arcana, what we're going to do is we're going to take the number of the cards. So in this case, the Emperor was 4, right? So that's easy. So what happens if you get the universe? Card number 21. So there's a couple of ways you can do it, and this is all dependent on what you would like to do. So we have opted to say, if we get 21, we're just going to do like a numerological reduction. So 2 + 1 is 3. We're just going to take the card and call it a 3. Other people may say, well, I'd like to have more of the jacks, queens, and kings, and not have quite so many aces to 9s. So you could take, again, the world, 21, subtract 13 from it, and you end up with 8, right? And so that would be an 8, right? I hope that makes sense, a little bit of math. But you would end up like whatever the 13th card is in the major arcana. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. That would be like the king, and then the 14th card would then be an ace, and then you progress on. It doesn't really matter for our purposes, because all we're trying to do is just get varied prompts. And beyond that, if the jack, queen, and king and the 10 don't come up quite so often, and the ace to the 9 come up a little more often, that's fine and okay. Okay, just have fun with it, play with it. Okay, let me come back now to the screen. Okay, so when I worked this through, I envisioned escaping the prison cell and the dungeon, with the entrance of the dungeon being in the bog, right? So I've talked about this. And so use the bog difficulties for finding reagents. And this goes through the what I also mentioned, ignorance is bliss about the whole bog thing and whatnot. Anyway, successfully picked up 2 reagents in the bog that shouldn't have been opened yet, but what the heck. Timer is now at 3. Okay, time to travel to Meltwater Lock. So by this time, Alicia and I, we were getting tired, drawing the cards and figuring things out. Again, this is the first go around. There's an awful lot of processing and getting used to things and whatnot. So don't be embarrassed. Don't be ashamed. It's just the nature of getting to know new stuff. And if it takes you a little while to kind of get the uptick and to understand the reasonings behind things, that's going to take time. And so just be patient with yourself. What we opted to do is we said, okay, look, we've figured out enough stuff today. We'll go to Meltwater Lock, but instead of drawing an event card that says something else is going to happen and we have to deal with it, that's just going to be too much for us to handle today. Instead, we're just going to get there. We're going to grab the reagent. We'll do our card pick, and then we'll go home. And then we'll brew up the potion. And that's what we opted to do. And I'm glad we made that choice. I think it was just, it was getting to be too much. Okay, so I'm going to come back to the screen. Okay, so we get to Meltwater Lock. We'll get in, get out. We picked up our smooth croak. The timer is at 1. And now it's time to go home and brew. Now, so the last bits. So we go home and brew. The book tells you what you need to do for each of the well, they call them tags, but it's going to be the elements associated with that ailment. So the skull cap is good for poison, and so we crushed it. In fact, I'm going to come back real quick. So the skull cap. Okay, here we go. So there's the skull cap in the middle of the page. So it can be crushed to handle poison, right? So, and you have a mortar and pestle. That's one of your tools that you have available in your cottage that the old witch left behind. And the other thing that we grabbed is the smooth croak. And again, I'm going to bring that up. So the mucus can be boiled. So you do that in your cauldron. Again, that is equipment that is already in the cottage. So you boil it for warts. Okay. So we know now how to put the potion together, and you can talk about the preparation. You can talk, the sights, the smells, the sounds. And then in the end, as we wrap it up, we got paid the 20 silver. That the amounts that you're paid are given in the book, and as ailments increase in difficulty, the amount that you are paid increases. And also you get a reputation increase of 2. And 1, that's for doing the potion on time, and 1 for only using reagents with tags that covered what was needed. So here we go. So if you recall, actually, let's not do if you recall, just bring it over to here. So we did, so the smooth croak, we boiled it for warts, and that is the only thing that we've activated is the wart cure. And then in like fashion, bring it back for the skull cap, we crushed for the poison. All right, so we have only got medicinal qualities against the poison and against the warts. And because you have brewed neatly or professionally, you get an extra reputation.
Hey there, Parz from the future, yet again. I wanted to highlight really quickly and just sort of build upon the point that I was just making, that when you brew a potion, you get extra reputation if you brew cleanly. So what does not cleanly look like? And I just wanted to highlight that real quick. So I'm going to take you to my example screen here. So when we were in the Hero's Hollow and we picked up 2 reagents, we picked up the crocol, which is the one on the top, and the skull cap, which is the one on the bottom. And when we brewed the potion for week 1, we used the skull cap because it covered poison only, right? We crushed it and we used it for poison. If you look at the crocol, and it says crocol can be crushed for dehydration, stomach, and poison. So we could very legitimately have used crocol as opposed to skull cap. But here's the thing. When you brew and it's got extra curative things that you don't need, so the dehydration and the stomach, that may, that's nice. And if you had an ailment that required a cure for dehydration and stomach and poison, boy, wouldn't that be just a wonderful thing, because you can cover 3 things in one. But if you only need the one thing, poison, using the skull cap was a better choice because you brew more cleanly. You're not over-medicating your patient. And that's what I'm trying to get to in this little bit. Okay, back to the video.
Okay, so that is where we are. So before I get into the bit where I'm going to read what I ended up with, I'm just going to go over some things that I kept in mind as I wrote my stuff. So again, this is the first entry for curing someone. So let the prologue set the tone, and then just write what comes. It's okay for it to be short and to the point. It's also okay for it to be longer. We don't really care about length, right? This is your story. If you just want to keep it nice and short, that is fine, beautiful, and dandy. If you want to expand out and talk about more things, you can do that too. And boy, do I ever in future episodes. This one, not so much. Excuse me. The last thing that I want to bring up, and I'm going to be talking about this quite a bit in this in future videos, is the concept of show rather than tell. So when you can, rather than tell what happens, and talking about that slide, so I fell down a hole onto a slide and then into a locked jail cell. Right? So I told you what happened. I'm going to show what happens. What was my experience? As I was walking along, my footsteps padding softly on the dewy grass, a moment of panic erupted when my foot, instead of landing on solid ground, kept going down. Before I had a chance to sort out what was going on, the rest of me followed, and as I started to figure out I was on a slide, quickly descending into the inky black darkness, I was flung against solid bars before crashing to the solid, dusty floor. Which one's more satisfying to you? Which one engages your senses? Which one puts you into that place? And that is what we're going to be looking to do on all of these episodes, is showing, not telling. Okay, so with all of that said, I am going to bring us up to the blog. And before I start reading that, a little fortification. Okay, so here we go. So as I said, the first week of spring, Albert Flywheel is frogified. The first thing the book said was that the curing of ailments isn't all that difficult. And it's true, and not. The poor man, Albert Flywheel, the son of the miller, loved to read. In particular, he loved to read stories where people would do something accidentally magical and have incredible things happen. He hadn't counted on becoming frogified by kissing frogs, in hopes of having one be a transformed and forever grateful princess. I told Albert I'd prepare a remedy and that I'd let him know when it was ready. He left, and I read as much as I could about how to cure his affliction. So I'm going to pause here real quick before I continue reading on. So the usual course of action with patients who come to you is that they stay at your house. I forgot that, so I just sent him home, and I was like, I'll go get you. But I followed that routine in subsequent episodes. But this is the first one. I just sent him home. Okay, again, guidelines. So he left, and I read as much as I could about how to cure his affliction. After considering the hows of his cure, I decided to first travel to Hero's Hollow. Maybe I was getting a bit ahead of myself, having spent a bit of time reading instructions from an absent witch, but I felt I was a hero in helping someone who clearly needed it. The day was pleasant. I was whistling in a fabulous mood and full of confidence that I'd soon be an accomplished healer. and people said things like this were difficult. That was the last thought I had before the ground rushed up past me and I landed in the dark. And at some point, I came to. Heroes Hollow, huh? Hollow, that's for sure. After a bit of feeling around and getting used to the bit of light shining down from above, I realized I was on the wrong side of some sort of jail cell. Iron bars are one of those quick clues that things aren't going according to plan. A bit of panic hit me, I must admit. I grabbed the cell door and began to shake it, yelling, crying, begging. Luck was with me again. The key fell out of the lock and landed within reach. In short order, I was out. Sniffing the air told me that one way along the long row of cells was old and musty, probably going deeper into the jail. The other way was fresher, more organic smells. Even rot can be good. Something was alive recently. Some feeling around, some more sniffing the air, and finally catching some light got me out from underground and into a bog. And luck was with me again. In short order, I'd found both some crow coal and some skullcap. I think ravens must have dropped the crow coal, and the skullcap was growing right next to it. I now had my reagent to deal with the poison that lies latent in some frog skins. I now needed something for the warts. That took me to Meltwater Lock. This time I walked far more cautiously. I didn't need another bit of trouble trying to escape from behind any sort of door or cell involving a lock. The walk was long but entirely uneventful, and easily found within the lock was Smoothcroak. It had taken me far longer than I'd originally thought it would take, but I did eventually get back to the cabin with my reagents. Now it was time to prepare them. I made quick work with the mortar and pestle on the skullcap while waiting for the Smoothcroak to release its goodness within the steaming cauldron. With everything in readiness, I fetched Albert. I carefully wiped the resulting watery cream over his lips, which immediately began to heal. He smiled in relief. I wasn't sure I'd see you again. I thought maybe you weren't a proper witch, but I can feel things getting better already. Thank you. And then he paid me. I get paid? I could be sitting in a classroom getting bored, but here I am making money. Wow. If Dad ever hears that I dropped out of school, hopefully I'll have a small fortune to show for it. And now I think I'll have a bit of a rest before I think about next things. I got paid. I got paid. I love that bit. So that's the story that I wrote. Now, there's clearly things that I didn't talk about. The reagents, you know, where they were, the difficulty in finding them. It was just like, boom, they're right there. Here we go. All right, I opted to not cover that stuff. Again, it was a difficult week. We're still figuring stuff out. Be patient, be kind, take small bites. Just get used to things. The story will be fine. And trust me, it will get longer because, oh boy, did mine ever. But there you go. Okay. Before I move on with the Panzer section, I do want to bring us back to a bit of deep breathing and stretching. So I'm going to invite you to take a deep breath in with me. Here we go. Breathing in. And stretch. And I don't normally square breathe. Exhale. I don't square breathe on these ones. I just use that as to set myself up. Come back to the room. I use that to set myself up for writing, for being creative. In terms of like these middle ones, yeah, I deep breath, a little bit of a stretch, and keep going. Okay. So now here we are in the Panzer section, some discussion items, things that fell out from my experience writing this bit. First item, when you aren't sure what to do, it's okay just to make something up or choose to do something other than what the guidebook says you should do. So, ending up in the bog, that should have been locked. It's okay. It works for the purpose of story, and I know better now for next time, so I won't be ending up in the bog. I will get there, you know, the right way. and that's part of the journey as well, right? It's going to be, how do you get to the bog, and all the adventure that goes into that. So I don't begrudge the fact that things are closed. Having limitations, having troubles, having problems, and then overcoming them is one of the great motifs of fiction writing. This is where it is, right? That's the whole point of a novel, is like you introduce the characters involved, you introduce a problem, you work through the problem and all the other associated things in the middle, and at the end, problem is all wrapped up, solved, neat in a bow. Boom, done. Here we have a continual series of, problem after problem after problem, and we solve and we solve and we solve, and it leads to new things, and it leads to these, all of this new stuff that we get to experience in further and further episodes. And this is why I love it so much, because you can just have so much fun and just go off in so many different directions. It's fabulous. Okay. Coming back here. I wasn't sure who the first patient should be. The description said it should be someone who's a hopeless romantic, so I chose someone that I thought would fit the bill. So this is not the last we've heard from Albert Flywheel. That's one of these great things as well. If you mention something here in this first episode, he may very well show up in a future episode. And he does. He's going to be in the next one. Name reference. He doesn't actually show up. But that's okay, because, the townspeople know each other to some degree. And, we're new, we're young, we're fresh, we're discovering all of this stuff for the first time. And so we get to discover all those interrelationships as well. As she says, wow, I say, wow. As I say, wow, she says, wow. This is how I like it to be. And now we can sort of see it in operation. Okay, and the name Albert Flywheel just kind of came to me. I don't know why Flywheel and a miller go together, except to say Flywheel is, it's more like a watchmaker, doesn't it? But he's a miller. Whatever. Okay. I chose to have my witch get excited about being paid. I thought that someone young and inexperienced, but also not familiar with money, would focus on that. It's sort of like getting an allowance for the first time. She was a bit, hadn't really left her cabin, as she reportedly says in the prologue. So she's getting her first taste of money and all that means. And now she gets to discover, I get to buy things. I get to do things for my own. I get all of these things. I get to be a business person in a sense. And all of that gets to be new. So again, young, inexperienced, this is all new. Okay, here we go. The last thing, and it's another one of these show rather than tell. So this isn't a telling of events like what you'd find in a newspaper of the what, the who, the where, the when, and the why. Instead, you want to take time to reflect, to focus on experiences no matter how seemingly unimportant. If you want to write at length about the various shades of blue in the sky, or your love of coffee, or whatever, go for it. Now, that does not mean that you need to write about everything. You do not need to sit there and, write endlessly about all the shades of blue in the sky, and then endlessly about all the shades of green in the forest, and then endlessly about all the shades of blue in the water. And just pick the things that you want to do, or that the story is asking to be focused on. Because sometimes these insignificant things can become significant in the future. Or maybe not. Anyway, if you want to just focus on a particular thing and you want to go for a while and the story is saying, this makes sense to me, go with it. And just ride that, that inspiration. What Alicia and I are finding both as we are writing more and more is that the story really steps in and says, I would really like to focus on this, or this is an element that I'd like to have included. And no matter how you try to avoid it, It will get you there, one way or the other. So enjoy the ride. Yeah, that's what I enjoy about the pantser part of this. You sort of have an idea as to what's going to happen. You have the things you want to hit. You've got the guidebooks. You've got what was written before. You've got your imagination, and it all kind of comes together. You're like this one giant mixing bowl, and then out pops cookies. And how did it get there? Some combination of, like, magic and mixing, and more magic and more mixing, and then baking and magic and magic. Anyway, that is the everything I wanted to cover. Our drawing expressions haiku. Drawing Expressions, a creative space, holistically supportive. Please like, share, and subscribe. And the sharing would be absolutely lovely. If you know of someone who would like to join us on this journey, if they want to write along, if they just want to listen, whatever they'd like to do, come on board. Love to have you. That, I think, is definitely it now. Yes. So again, thank you, and I will see you in the next video, where we do the rest session for week 1, and we get to meet our witch's familiar, Mouse Eye. Until then.